Did 90-Day Fiancé happily ever after? Sophie Sierra go back to London after her split with Rob Warne on season 8, or is she still living in America? Sophie is a 25-year-old British woman who married the 32-year-old Rob on 90DF season 10. Sophie knew that Rob had online cheated on her when they were dating, but still came to the US on a K-1 visa. The cheating scandal continued to wreak havoc in the couple's lives even after they married. Sophie eventually decided to move out of Rob's apartment with a question of where she would go next. Sophie is a fashion model and content creator from London, England. However, Sophie wasn't raised in the UK, as revealed by her during the 90-Day Fiancé season 10 premiere. Sophie said one of the perks of her job was that she didn't have to stay in one place. She could go wherever and still make a living by creating social media content. Sophie's family is wealthy. She didn't know how, but her granddad made a lot of money. Sophie said it was why she'd always lived in nice houses and went to private schools, traveled a lot of places. Sophie spoke about the traumatic experiences she had in life while growing up. She's mixed race. Her dad was black and her mom was white. Sophie grew up in Spain where there weren't any black people, so Sophie was the only mixed-race kid or black kid in the whole school. Sophie was bullied as a child. She didn't have any friends and struggled to fit in. As she grew up, Sophie started to go out and party. She was clubbing at the age of 12. She said that if someone looked old enough in Europe, they could go to the clubs. Sophie thinks that the difficult things she had to go through in her childhood shaped her into the person she is today, and also led her to the love of her life, Rob. Sophie used to follow quite a lot of Instagram pages that featured cute mixed-race men. She saw Rob's profile on the page. He was the only person she followed from the page because she thought he was so cute. Sophie was just one of the women who'd reached out to Rob since he was a model, but he was taken aback by how attractive she was. Sophie and Rob texted back and forth, after which he FaceTimed her to see if she was real and not a catfish. That FaceTime lasted for 8 hours. Sophie realized how, despite coming from different backgrounds, they'd had similar background experiences. They kept talking online for 6 months until Sophie came to Los Angeles to meet Rob in person. They went from being strangers to living together for 2 months. Sophie also mentioned that they lived together in Mexico for a while until she went to the UK and waited for her K-1 visa to be approved. Rob lived in California with his dog in a small apartment. Rob was worried because, in the past, Sophie had never even had to pay rent for the places she'd lived in and was used to having maids. She had her spoiled rich girl tendencies. Rob wanted to bring Sophie down to earth. He knew being with him was not going to be a cakewalk for Sophie. He was right since Sophie was upset with Rob's house not having a bathroom inside it. It appeared to be a shared space and Sophie had to walk through the courtyard and access the toilet. Sophie tried to view this as a temporary setup until they got a normal, proper space. Sophie felt like the neighborhood wasn't safe. When Rob took Sophie to Venice Beach, she suggested they could live by the pier. She thought they'd be happier if they lived by the beach because they were very happy the whole time when they lived together in Mexico. Rob asked Sophie how much money she said she had saved. She reminded him she couldn't work on a K-1 visa. Rob had suggested she ask her family for financial help. Sophie had been independent since she was 16 to 17 years old. Sophie and Rob didn't stay together in California for long. They married in 2022 in a dreamy beach wedding ceremony and soon decided to move. Sophie, Rob, and his dog Rome all moved to Austin, Texas. They also expanded their family a bit, and Rob also got 6 new pet tarantulas. Unfortunately, their fights continued just a few months after they moved. Sophie had thought moving to Austin was going to be a fresh start for them, but if anything, it made things worse. It had been 2 months since Sophie had left Rob when they began filming 90 Day Fiancé. Happily Ever After, Season 8. Sophie went to stay with her friend Ka. Ron suspected Sophie, who is bisexual, was having an affair with her best friend. While they made multiple attempts to get back together, including getting therapy, Rob and Sophie failed to resolve their issues. She left his apartment again in episode 12 and was undecided about her next move. Sophie needed space to think about what she would do next. Sophie knew she was stuck in a cycle of leaving Rob and coming back. Sophie didn't know if she would be able to stay further in America if she left Rob. She had Ka, her friends, and her new life in the U.S.K. assured Sophie that her fear of letting go of her life in America was not a good enough reason for her to stick with Rob. Sophie was also holding on to the old version of Rob, thinking things would eventually work between them. However, in March 2024, In Touch confirmed that Rob and Sophie had split for good and were heading towards divorce. Rob and Sophie are yet to file for divorce since this show is still on. They filmed 90 Day, the last resort, in April 2024, but it looks like couples therapy didn't bring them back together. There are rumors that Rob has already moved on and has a new girlfriend. Meanwhile, Sophie is still in America. Rob and Sophie have remained friends since their split. They could have decided not to divorce until Sophie finds a footing for herself in America. In May 2024, Sophie posted pictures of her exploring Scottsdale, Arizona, and suggested she could move there for its peaceful atmosphere. Sophie moved in with Ka following her fight with Rob in May 2023. It's been over a year that she's still living with her best friend. Sophie was recently making headlines with the arrest of her mom, Claire Cheshire. According to Starcasm, Claire was arrested in Texas on May 9, 2024, for reportedly threatening her daughter, after weeks of escalating tension with Sophie and Sophie's roommate, Kay. Claire had been living with Sophie and Ka for 3 months until the 90 Day Fiancé. Happily Ever After. Star asked her mom to leave the apartment in April 2024.